Live.
Okay.
It is live on YouTube and on Twitter. I'll actually send over the link here in a second as soon as we actually get to our intro song into our group. But yeah, I mean, with it being Taylor's birthday and everything, we actually, we got a special episode tonight. So I'm very excited to kick this one off. Taylor, how did you get permission from your wife to be able to come on your birthday after dinner and be able to do a podcast with us?
Well, it's because it is my birthday that I was able to get that permission. Usually it would be, the husband-wife time to talk about their day after the kids go to bed. And because it was my birthday, I'm able to forego that tonight. I mean, unfortunately, I have to forego that tonight in order to do a podcast. So
that's always fun. All right, let's go ahead and kick this show off. I think everything is set up and ready to rock and roll. So let's do this.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
That's right. We are live. We are live here on Fantasy Intervention for, another episode on Wednesday nights. Get excited. These are normally our a little bit of a shit show type episode, but we're going to keep it a little bit clean because we have the grandpa Taylor in the house.
Yeah.
Another year older. What's going on, Taylor? Happy birthday to you, man.
Thank you very much. Can't think of anywhere else I would rather be than right here.
Wow.
Oh, that's so sweet, man. That is sweet.
Well, other than like sleeping in bed, this is my second favorite spot.
Yeah, I can't believe you're actually awake at this hour, to be honest with you. We also have Air DJ from Fantasy Intervention. What's going on, DJ? How you doing?
Hello. Excellent. Couldn't be better.
Or should I say A_I_R_R_D_J_, the most fun Twitter name out there. And then, of course, Sigmund Bloom, our special guest tonight. Oh, man, Sigmund, what's going on? How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm even better now that I'm here, and especially finding out that it was Taylor's birthday. And in intervention, I like to be part of these kinds of circles. I have a lot of experience with addictive behaviors, compulsive behaviors in my family. This isn't an episode on the couch, but I think this show in some ways was made for me.
Dude, I love that. Absolutely love that. And, we're happy to have you on, man. Can you tell us a little bit about, yourself, what you do, any of the work that you have coming up, anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm in football, guys. I've been there for about 15 years, and it's enjoyable. They were a group of people who really cared too much about fantasy football. And I think that's what this is all around. We spend our bandwidth, our precious breaths on fantasy football. But really, it is about intervention, or a way for us to find each other. And so I was looking at the bottles on the intro graphic. I was just thinking about that parallel, because I think when we're managing our fantasy teams, or we're just in that mindset, everything else just fades into the background, and it'll be there when we're done. But it's a little bit of peace, just like going to sleep. And I have to echo Taylor's sentiment there, because one of the best things about being alive is that feeling of falling asleep.
Dude, I love that. Absolutely love that. I feel like you and Taylor are on one and the same wavelength right now. Yeah. So it's definitely fun, being able to. I got a storm going on outside. It's definitely fun being able to, do these shows and be able to talk fantasy football with people. I mean, actually, Taylor invited me onto a show earlier today, and we probably bullshitted for close to 2 hours, total between his podcasts and what we wanted to talk about off air as well. So it's kind of cool, having that support system, having that crew, and having that circle of influence, essentially. But real quick, before we jump into the episode, Taylor, you want to let everybody know where to find you and what you're doing?
Absolutely. Out on Twitter at just1_Taylor Cornell. All my written stuff, articles and whatnot, out on fantasyintervention.com. I have the pod that Chase mentioned, the Dinosaurs, that I'm typically just doing solo stuff whenever I feel like it. And then Mr. DJ and I started one up a couple weeks ago. So that's, I would say, a much more different podcast than my other one. So a little less data driven, a little more tongue in cheek, maybe. I don't know how DJ would describe it. That's how I describe it, but
it's seriously one of my favorite shows. I've heard every single episode. DJ, you want to tell everybody a little bit about that show, where they can find you?
I mean, we're on all the podcasts, wherever you can find the podcast. I describe the show as something along the lines of, well, probably the easiest way is to tell you that Taylor last time was discussing his encounter with his own masseuse last time, talking about that she brought up Deshaun Watson. So that was an interesting story to hear from the week of that. I don't know, everything. It's just kind of, just discussing the NFL news week to week, get everything you need to know in a little hour or so. It's solid. It's probably my favorite podcast I've ever been a part of with Taylor.
And, and it's completely ridiculous too. I mean, it is like, what's the name of it one more time?
You Can't Be Serious.
And why do you guys call it that?
Because I mean, look at Twitter, man. I mean, that's where we get a lot of our content from. I could scroll through Twitter and I could say that exact phrase about 7 times in 3 tweets.
It's great, man. It's seriously one of my favorite podcasts out there. Sigmund, for real. Like, if you get a chance to listen to it, you should really check it out, man. It's very, very good. All right, so real quick, we do have a few things to discuss. We have a little bit of a different show as to where, we've been talking about the free agents, over the past few weeks. We've been covering a little bit of the rookie class. We've been talking about, some of these team needs and whatnot. But I kind of wanted to go a little bit of a different direction with this one. I mean, we're sitting there and we're looking at these cap issues, right? When the free agency started, and some of these big names, it took a little bit for them to get signed. Like, Sigmund, were you shocked at all when it came to how long it took to get Kenny Galladay signed and Will Fuller? You weren't shocked at all?
No, well, shocking in a sense, but what's great about free agency, what's great about obsessing about football the way we do is you're tracking this journey. It's always in flux. Football is always changing, and the hive mind of the teams are reacting. And I think we did see wide receiver really start to go the route of running back, where teams are going to look at them as more fungible, not worth the highest end money. And that was part of why Galladay and Fuller lasted for so long. But I think what we are seeing is, let's just, for this year at least, ball up and throw in the trash this idea of the cap isn't real. And teams have done their cap magic. But look, there are teams out there cutting players that they don't want to be cutting. That truly are not cap cuts, in the sense that going into this year, you'd probably hear someone say something like, well, no team cuts a player that they want to keep. But teams are cutting players that they want to keep. And certainly teams that have been more prudent and teams that have not taken the bait in free agency, right? Because it's this horrible cycle. The worst teams are the worst because they draft badly. So they don't have anybody worth re-signing. So they have all this money. And they take the players that other teams didn't want to re-sign, and they remain bad. Hopefully some of these teams can break out of that cycle.
Yeah, it's actually, on my show sheet here where, we had certain teams who were cap strapped. And yeah, I'm saying cap strapped because you can load contracts all different ways and try to manipulate the system. But when it all comes to the end of it, you still will have to cut players to add newer players to, extend contracts. The cap is very, very real. Now, how teams choose to manipulate that is all up to them. But we'll start out with Taylor. Did you feel like some of these free agents would have gotten signed a little bit earlier? Or were you kind of surprised yourself that, it took a few days to get some of these bigger names in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming into the year with some of the questions, or I guess coming into the offseason with some of those questions around the what the cap would look like this offseason because of some of the uncertainties, I maybe expected it to be a little bit slower. But generally speaking, it was kind of odd, though, that on day one, I mean, the Patriots pretty much owned day one. But when you look at their actual signings, that they rushed out to sign Nelson Aguilar and who's the other receiver? I think they signed another receiver, right?
Bourne.
Kendrick Bourne. You rush out and set the market with those guys. And then see what a Will Fuller gets 2 days later, 3 days later, whatever it was. make some of these guys that were, I don't know whether they were waiting or whether teams were holding out on them, but those guys later in free agency look like the bargain.
Yeah, I agree with you. DJ, do you have a different take on that? Or are you pretty much in the same boat with us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was kind of curious with the Patriots setting the bar and basically being Aguilar. That was that was either a testament to Belichick seeing something that no one else saw, or the Raiders have a really good way of making a lot of people look better than they are. I don't know what it would be. Either way, I was curious more so about how this related to the draft as well, because it seems like as we've been discussing the draft throughout these past few weeks, we've had a pretty deep class coming in. So I didn't know if maybe some teams were kind of looking, hey, how can we focus on in the future of months coming forward, getting a younger guy or whatever it may be, instead of signing some of these older veterans? I'm not sure, but yeah, I probably more so side with Taylor than anything. It was strange from the beginning with the Patriots really setting the Aguilar price. That was wild among other things.
I mean, it was wild. New England set the record for the most free agent or most salary cap money spent in free agency in like the first week, whatever that time period was. We had Houston, who went out and signed 24 free agents. 24 free agents. 22 of them were not part of their team previously. And the biggest contract given out was to the punter. Mm-hmm. Like, that's absolutely insane to me. Like, how does a team go out and spend money on 24 free agents and yet their biggest one is the punter? So Sigmund, like, do you have a certain strategy that you like with your teams that it comes to with how teams approach free agency?
Yeah. So let's go back to Belichick, right? Because that's a fun part of the NFL reality show. Because we have the whole Belichick Brady, who's really the Patriots way, who's that about, you know? And obviously last season, it was a resounding, like, it was Brady all along, you know? And Belichick, it reeked of desperation. Look, Jason, I think his last name is Fitzgerald. I always forget. I feel terrible about that. From Over the Cap. Fantastic. That site is fantastic. Definitive. Anything cap related. It's like I go to it like 15 times a day. And he compared it to Mike Ditka trading his whole draft so that he could golf. You know, it was just really like Belichick was kind of the donkey in free agency, which is just, as y'all have been saying, it's wild as part of that. And then you have all these other approaches, like you're saying, like Houston, which is like what, dumpster diving for players or something. I'm not really sure. But what you want to see, I think what Detroit's doing is solid. I think obviously we can point to Miami and say
oh God.
Miami is doing something that it seemed like Cleveland was on the verge of during the U Jackson, Sashi Brown. And it's interesting now that U is talking about how there was this internal war. They set up this war between analytics and football instead of a marriage between analytics and football, which again always comes back to like organizational clarity, organizational quality, and sometimes ownership can be related to that too. So Detroit, what Brad Holmes is doing, I think he's just burning it down, right? I mean, Quinn Patricia was horrible. I'm wondering if some of these players that played under Matt Patricia, defensive players especially, are going to get a bounce like we saw from the offensive players when they would move on from Adam Gase, right? There's this feeling of like the weight lifted from your shoulders. All of a sudden, you're just a better player because you're not playing for that guy anymore. And Patricia and Quinn, again, another failed hit, like trying to recreate the Belichick way. It wasn't Belichick, it was Brady. Anyway, so even the Jared Goff trade, like I'll take a first-round pick to see if I can do something with Jared Goff. Because the first-round pick is a building block that is paying dividends 5-6 years from now. So use that cap money, paying $7 million for Tyrell Williams and Brashad Perriman. Like, we'll have startable wide receivers, but that's what we're going to have, basically, the minimum. And Miami did that and still gave us some memorable moments with Fitzpatrick, still got Tua, still basically own the draft for the next 2 years, own this draft. I think they're going to get the player at 6 that they would have taken at 3 anyway. They got a first and a third round pick for free. Chris Greer, man. Chris Greer is doing a master work right now.
He's brilliant. Like, he's almost as brilliant as like Kai Harley over there for, New Orleans and the salary cap master, like the guy that's been running everything that the Falcons tried to bring in. That dude is brilliant. Chris Greer has been amazing so far with this rebuild. And, it's kind of funny because that was like the next topic for me. So I'll go ahead and start it with Taylor real quick. With the recent trade, which we actually talked about on your podcast earlier, the 49ers trade up with the Dolphins, and the Dolphins traded back up with the Eagles. So I want to start out with the 49ers. And at this point, we've heard every last quarterback pretty much being, selected by the 49ers. Like next, we're going to end up hearing Kyle Trask, right? Like he's going to be the next guy that's going to be selected at 3.
Kellen Mond, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, that's where I feel like it's going. So, where, or I should say, who do you think the 49ers are going to take, and who do you think that they should take?
I think they will take. Well, okay, I'll say I think they will take Trey Lance. I think they should take Justin Fields. I think the Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones will be fine in the NFL. Actually, I don't think he's a bad player, but I think he lacks that, I guess, upside you're wanting from your quarterback. He's not going to. He doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to elevate an NFL team and the players around him. If he's surrounded by playmakers, he'll be quite adequate. But I feel like that's what San Francisco's kind of had with the Garoppolo, and that Garoppolo is sufficient when he's got good weapons around him and he's healthy, and his weapons are healthy. And I kind of think that Shanahan is going to want to shoot for the maybe biggest potential in this class at quarterback in Trey Lance. And so that's why I think he'll probably go that direction. But I'm also a biased Ohio State fan, so I'll just get that out of the way right now. But I would take Justin Fields because I think he's very pro ready, despite all of the Twitter analysts out there that think otherwise.
The Twitter analysts. DJ, what are you thinking, man?
I agree with Taylor on Fields would be a very awesome fit. I just don't know if that's actually gonna be the case because the buzz around Mac Jones has at first caught me off guard. I was not so sure of that. I didn't feel like it was making any sense because he seemed like a guy that was clearly going to be available at 12. If they are to take Mac Jones at 3, then I would assume that means that there was enough talk for them to have felt that someone else was going to take him in the top 10. Now, I think there's the difference between a good fantasy quarterback and a good NFL quarterback. They can be one and the same, but they can also be different. I think Mac sometimes kind of rubs off the wrong way in a fantasy world because he's probably going to be a lower upside guy. So when you talk about him, you got to make sure you're talking about him. If you're talking about him going to the 49ers, talk about him strictly just being the QB in the 49ers, not your guy on your roster spot that you're hoping is going to get you some points. In that case, I actually don't think it would be a bad fit. I've come around to it. Actually, as of recent today, I was just still sitting with it. And it's not like he's a unique quarterback in the way that Shanahan hasn't had someone like him before. In fact, most of the quarterbacks he's worked with throughout his years in the NFL have been Mac Jones, basically.
Yeah.
Good, accurate passers. So, I mean, it's a fit for sure. Is it the best fit in my mind? I don't know. I definitely agree with Taylor. I'd like to have the guy who can run the ball, is also accurate, has a good cannon. Justin Fields would be my guy pick as well. But it does just matters on what they're feeling. I mean, if they're in the window right now to win the Super Bowl, which with the team they've put together, if they feel like Mac Jones is the guy who gets the offense quick enough and moves forward, basically being a better Jimmy Garoppolo, then they already made it once with Jimmy. Why can't they do it with someone who's even better in the position? It is interesting, though, because also we haven't heard anything about whether Jimmy is being traded or anything like that of official. So it's fun. It's a really fun. I'm glad it happened. It was really exciting.
They are saying that they want to hold on to Jimmy for at least a year or so and see if he can make another run while they probably draft a quarterback, most likely. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition or not. But Sigmund, I'm going to turn this into a 2-part question for you. Or I guess a 3-part question, because, who do you want them to take? Who do you think they will take? And then can you please give Cooter Doodle some solace as to the Saints and whoever you think their quarterback 1 is going to be while we have you here?
Yeah, I'll take the last one first. Because Jameis Winston, this has been the plan for more than a year. He had LASIK, right? So
he had LASIK.
It was his eyes. But he's in a good ecosystem. It's positive thinking, the power of positive thinking, and they're still going to have the Taysom Hill change up. So let's step through this because this is awesome. It's like DJ was saying, like, it's great that it happened. It was an adrenaline rush. It's just, phew. And then while the adrenaline is still in your system, then Miami trades back up with Philadelphia. You're like, wow, like it is fantasy football. Well, because it's like what we would do. It's like they have that much clarity. It was exciting because it was a statement of an organization. Again, Chris Greer, of certainty, clarity about their intentions and how to take the situation they're in and get the best out of it, the most they possibly could, taking that kind of gamble. Okay, Mac Jones. So the trade happens, and you start seeing Chris Sims, who you know is Shanahan's boy, saying, well, Mac Jones, all right. Daniel Jeremiah, who, you know, I'll listen to Daniel Jeremiah. Don't rule out Mac Jones. Chris Mortensen. And at that point, I'm like, okay, really? Because when I first saw Chris Sims say Mac Jones, I thought, this is like a spit take. You know what I mean? This is like football is like slapstick. You trade up to number 3 for Mac Jones. Oh, my God. Not that they can't make Mac Jones work, but it just seemed like it was going to be a punchline almost.
Who else would have taken him? It's driving me insane.
It was ridiculous. And they tried to always draw that connection because of the kind of quarterback Shanahan has worked with, even going back to Mike. And Kyle was pretty awesome in his press conference on Monday. I think he just totally shot this down because they asked him about Kirk Cousins. You're always linked to Kirk Cousins. And he says, hey, Kirk's good. I wish I could play with him. We wanted to go after him, but the Vikings got him, and they're winning with him, and that doesn't surprise me. But that's not how you draw it up, he said. You know, I mean, he's like, that's not what you take if you have your pick. You move up number 3 because you can have your, well, I mean, maybe not your pick because you're not going to get Lawrence. And we all agree Zach Wilson number 2, like we're putting it in pen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird, and anything can happen. But there was that whole thing with the Eagles maybe would have moved up to number 3 if they thought Wilson would have been there. And instead, Howie trades down, which is kind of tipping off that the Jets are going to take Wilson. Anyway, it's going to be Fields or Lane.
I buy that.
What do you mean? That actually happened, or that there was legitimate interest?
I think that the Eagles just wouldn't give up their pick necessarily because of the fact that, you know, they wanted too much. And so essentially, like, the Eagles not being able to move up to pick number 2, which is the pick that they wanted, which is kind of ironic because that's, you know, where they selected Carson Wentz, right? So, you know, it like them not being able to go up and get their guy because they wanted too much and then to blame it saying that they wanted Wilson. I feel like that was more of like an intuition type, like, oh, I feel like they want Wilson, so they're wanting too much. When in all reality, like, I don't think it's locked in necessarily with Wilson, but you know, in our community and in the football community, it's written in pen as of right now because of what was said. But I just don't know if that's a guaranteed, you know, I guess pick at that point.
It's true. But the betting markets also reacted to it pretty strongly. Anyway, you know, it's Fields or Lance. And Taylor, I'm a Twitter analyst. I kind of resemble that remark. But look, Fields or Lance is fun. It's fun.
But you're an analyst with a capital A. I'm talking about the little A analyst. Okay.
Well, look, and I'm not saying that my word should carry any more weight than anybody else's. Okay. I just have football. I can speak the English language and convey like what happens in my brain when I watch it. But I would take Lance over Fields. But I think that both are outstanding prospects. It's fantastic that this is the 3rd and 4th quarterback in a draft because you know, Breeze is retired, Rivers is retired, Roethlisberger's going to be next, Brady eventually. And where are these quarterbacks coming from? We got a great influx last year, like with guys like Josh Allen stepping up, and now you have these 4 guys. So I would take Fields over Lance simply because of this. When I watch Justin Fields, the one thing that I miss is that when the play is over and now he's improvising, he doesn't really want to pass. He doesn't think pass first. He can make plays outside of structure. It's just not comfortable for him. It's probably why the NFL likes Zach Wilson so much more, even though they shouldn't necessarily, is because Wilson is always wanting to attack as a passer, kind of like Mahomes. That's why he keeps getting brought up in some ways, along with the odd platforms and arm slots and things like that. But Fields is fantastic at pushing the ball down the field, can take everything out of structure, which Kyle Shanahan schemes guys open. So he doesn't really have to think much as a passer. And obviously his athleticism is something that we haven't seen in a Shanahan system since, like, I don't know, not even John Elway. I mean, this could be better than John Elway in terms of the athletic threat. I like Trey Lance. My colleague Matt Waldman brought up the name Steve McNair. And I liked that because the thing that I remember about McNair the most, and the thing that I see strongest in Lance, is that competitive toughness, whether it's as a runner, whether it's bodies flying around him in the pocket, whether it's trying to make things happen. And he is comfortable attacking as a runner and a passer, and he's a very dangerous runner also. The risk with Lance is the level of competition, obviously. And Fields has shown that he can do it. He's had some games at the end of his career. I don't think you can fault him for either one. And I think whoever gets the other is getting one of the best values of the draft. I think it's going to be Carolina. That's a fantastic story. The top 10 of the draft this year is just spine-tingling when you think about all the different combinations that can happen, like destinies that can change, of players, of coaches, of franchises with this group. It's going to be great. And it's part of, I think, us all starting to feel like life is getting back to normal, right? Or some sense of like the rhythms are coming back. And this year's draft and the fact that we're speculating like this feels good, feels really good.
Oh, I absolutely love it 100%. And hopefully Matt got his account fixed. Did he ever get his account back?
Yes, that was funny. Like, look, it shows how loyal everyone is to Matt because you couldn't miss it on your timeline.
That's true.
No, I shared it like 5 times. I think I even shared it in our group a couple times too. So
I thought at the end of it, the first couple times I read it, I thought at the end it was going to be like share with 5 people for good luck for the rest of your life, like one of those Facebook things. Because I kept seeing the same thing copy pasted, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't want to miss out on the good luck.
All right, so we're gonna hop over to the Dolphins, right? And if like the Dolphins, I guess they're having talks with Kyle Pitts, like they're having ongoing talks as of today. But if the Bengals or the Falcons pass up on Sewell, right? You know, we could see the Dolphins end up with one of these top tier receivers or Penei Sewell. So I actually put in the show notes, which you already brought up. Could this be one of the best front office rebuilds in NFL history? We'll start out with Sigmund on this since he was already talking about it.
Yeah, well, whether it works out or not, I mean, which in some ways will hinge on Tua. But what's great is they already have the capital in the bank that they're pushing. It's really beautiful the way they've orchestrated all this around Tua, kind of like what the Bills did around Josh Allen last year. There's no excuses for Tua to fail at this point, and they're going to add somebody else that's going to corrupt it. Someone's going to step in right away. Pitts, Chase, Sewell, Smith, probably those are the 4 names. And that's why we're simulating the psychology of these moves, right? Okay, if you go from 3 to 12 to 6, then there must be 3 non-quarterbacks that you feel like will take any of them. And Smith is, you can make it even easier. And I think the best part of it was, I wasn't want to bring it back to Ryan Fitzpatrick. They brought in Fitzpatrick and people saying, you've got to lose. He wins games. That's bad.
Yeah.
And then Rosen crapped out and they did it anyway. And they were the team that hit the shot that like exposed the shot that blew up the Death Star, New England, that being, when they beat New England in week 17 and made them have to turn around and play in Tennessee right away. Like that was like the scene before the Death Star blowing up. And that alone, I thank the Dolphins.
I think you just got DJ all hot and bothered.
That was awesome.
So I'm going to give DJ a second to cool down real quick. And keep on. I'm going to ask you a second question. Does Tua, what player would they have to draft in order for Tua to regain his rookie hype that he had coming into 2020? Sigmund, I'm going to you for this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I need to let DJ cool down for a second.
Yeah. What player to help him get back to the hype? I mean, some people would say Devontae Smith because of the previous connection, but Kyle Pitts, my Lord, we throw around generational,
Oh, we
throw that around. But Chris Trapazzo, who does draft stuff for CBS, was on my show earlier this week, and he wanted to bring up when I mentioned Pitts that there's subtlety and nuance to his game. He's freakish physically, which we saw in the pro day workout, but there's subtlety and nuance to his game. Lance Zierlein is not one to get hot and bothered. He writes the draft profiles for NFL.com. He's fantastic. He's a fantastic radio guy too. He does incredible impressions. He has like whole characters that he does. Anyway, this is about Lance. This is about Kyle Pitts. He said Megatron. He, with a straight face, brought up Megatron and said teams in his division might have to rework their roster because of him. This is Lance Zierlein. This isn't me.
Yeah.
This isn't someone who's just spouting off and shooting off at the mouth. So if you get Kyle Pitts, who's probably the best non-quarterback in this draft, if you get him anywhere but as the first non-quarterback off the board, you did really good.
If you're able to create space up against a slot cornerback, at his size,
Yeah.
and you're able to create space between you and them while catching receptions. I mean, that's special. Like, that is special. And then you just add everything else to it. It's absolutely insane. It's like Chase Claypool, but he can actually play football
Right.
at a Calvin Johnson level. So, DJ, are you ready to go through this? Like,
Man, I just got excited. We talked about the Titans being the game that ended Tom Brady's career, interception, and career in New England. I mean, obviously he came back and rewrote that, the next year. But
no, it's no big deal. I'm just gonna go somewhere else to do it.
Yeah, watching him get an interception for his last pass in New England by the Titans, that's a good moment in history. A top moment in history. So I was just happy to remember that, really. But yeah, I'm sorry. What was the question though? I just still
and the Death Star too. Don't forget about the Death Star.
No, that was a great analogy.
Now, so with Miami, is this one of the best front office rebuilds in NFL history? Because I don't remember a turnaround like this ever.
Right.
Where you go from a completely depleted roster and almost like a middling team where they were losing every year, but they weren't bad enough to ever make a difference. They're in that twilight zone, and then you have. Tua, does he regain, what player would it take for him to regain the rookie hype? Does Penei Sewell actually move the needle for you, or does it have to be a top-end wide receiver?
Yeah, I do agree that this is probably one of the best rebuilds. It's certainly the most inspirational. I have revisited my own dynasty leagues and said, how can I make moves like this so I can be set up in the future? So it's definitely been something to make me reconsider my own personal life decisions, which has been nice. But I'll tell you, I 100% agree with Sigmund there about Pitts. It is phenomenal that he's been playing at Florida for a few years, and this last year it was amazing. And I hate Florida. I hate the Gators with every bone in my body. I can't stand them. But I would watch their games for one player and one player only, and that was
Kyle
Pitts.
Trask.
Mr. Airplane.
There is Tony.
Mr. Paper Airplane. No. No, but Pitts is amazing. It was incredible to watch him play against high-level NFL-style, NFL caliber cornerbacks, safeties, all across the board, defenses that were really solid, and pretty much not care. He would do amazing things. I mean, when he played against Georgia, I didn't love that game, but watching him do the things he did in that first half, especially, I was upset and in awe at the same time. I was like that. I was like watching my mug, wondering how it broke, upset.
Dude, I think you got me excited. I just literally, I was just sitting here with one hand on it. And I just got excited and broke a mug.
That's watching Kyle Pitts play against your team.
You're getting me all hot and bothered. This episode is just really hot and bothered.
That's what it is. I will say
it was like, yeah, that's what I do.
Not me.
It's contagious.
No, I'm just. It's the stage behind me. I just want to say because I'm gonna interject because y'all just let me interject. That someone needs to do the list of all of the favorite player on the team, the college team you hate. That could be one of the best draft lists, because if you are begrudgingly admitting or just that emotional feeling of an admiration and yet this dread, like the dread of death when you see that player, that's something that's like always, that's the big thumbs up for the player is going to be a good pro.
I got more of those if you'd like to. They're all over this draft list apparently. Being a Georgia Bulldog fan has its ups and mostly its downs. So that the next player on that list would probably be Devontae Smith in both ways. Devontae Smith would be a really good player to have on Miami. And if you recall back in 2017, I personally was at a bar celebrating before the game was even over. And Devontae Smith was the one who caught the pass to score the touchdown in overtime to win the national championship. So he's been a player in my mind that I've never liked, but have always enjoyed watching. So that's all. There's been so many. That was two of the through the past too. I mean, look, you can't write this, can't make this stuff up. But I like to think that Devontae Smith on that team would be a difference maker. Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, and Devontae Smith. I mean, that's a pretty solid receiving core right there. It'd be interesting though, because you got three guys who all have you could at least one or two reasons why nobody's liked him in the past. With Devontae Parker breaking out late, Will Fuller kind of doing the same thing and maybe needing some professional stimulants to help with that process. And then Devontae Smith is Mr. BMI. So who knows if that could even be a great receiving core, but I don't think that it would be a problem if you got a former teammate who clearly had some kind of connection with Tua. But if you're talking about offensive skill guys, Pitts and Smith are right there. I just don't think Chase will be there. If Chase is there, then that's my number one though, because I think Chase is a top wide receiver waiting to go into the league.
He won't be there.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm saying that.
He's going to Cincinnati, DJ.
Yeah, okay. Maybe he'll learn how to block for the O-line too or something. I don't know. Drew Sample gonna start stepping it up on the O-line.
Yeah.
All right, Taylor.
What's up?
I'm gonna skip your take on this one, but I am gonna start out with you on this next one. Okay?
I can't wait.
No, we're gonna have plenty of time to talk about the Jags and Trevor Lawrence, but I just want to know where you value Trevor Lawrence in a single quarterback rookie draft, because we got a bunch of mock drafts floating around. I've seen Trevor Lawrence go as high as number 4 in a single quarterback league, and that doesn't make sense to me, because like Joe Burrow was middle of the second last year. We haven't really seen quarterbacks like that go that high in single quarterback leagues. So, Taylor, where do you value Trevor Lawrence in a rookie quarterback in a rookie draft for single quarterback league?
Yeah, I'm with you on pretty low, and that's just from my personal team building structure with my one quarterback leagues, which I think I'm down to only one league that's a one quarterback league. And I'm just not interested in investing in the quarterback position when I only need to start one per week. If I have 2 on my roster, whether it's a Stafford, a Baker, Fitzpatrick, even, like, they're fine. Having the
it's fine. It's all fine.
It's all fine. I don't need I don't need to have 4 startable quarterbacks on my team. And so I'm typically just kind of not investing my rookie draft capital in any of these quarterbacks in the one quarterback leagues. I would say DLF has him at like 8 for one quarterback's ADP. I would probably be closer to like 13 or 14 maybe. I would rather get all of those pass catchers and running backs that potentially are getting decent touches early in their career before I touch. I mean, you just have to be convinced that Trevor Lawrence is coming in and is giving you such a sizable advantage at the position that he's worth sinking mid first round rookie draft capital. And I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like when we talk about Trevor Lawrence in his rookie year, it's tough to sit there and think that you can invest in a rookie quarterback to kind of win your league. But the best cornerback in the division, he left when it came to Dory Jackson. The Titans were 31st up against the quarterback in points scored. Houston's an absolute mess. Obviously, we talked about how they just signed 24 free agents and they're dumpster diving. And yeah, it's just not good. They have the NFC West and the AFC East. Plus, you throw in the Bengals, the Broncos, and then I believe they came out with another team that wasn't very good for the 17th game, since we have to readjust for the 17th game now. God, just shoot me now. All right, but no. If we sit there and we look at it, I mean, Trevor Lawrence could actually have a very good rookie season with that schedule coming up. So,
Yep.
DJ, are you in agreement with Taylor as to where you're not going to invest very highly in Trevor Lawrence in one quarterback leagues?
Not entirely, no. So it really just depends, though, upon your whole squad. I mean, it depends. I agree with Taylor in the fact that if it's single QB, you can rotate a few. You can find a couple of solid guys, play the matchup. You can work your weeks. Trevor Lawrence isn't going to come right off the bat and be a difference maker. I agree with both those points. However, if I am looking to get a quarterback and looking to get one that could be as the top 12 potential, maybe not in the first year, but will have it, you're talking about a guy who's got 10 years with this guy at minimum. I mean, like if this guy pulls through the way he should, I would certainly go about right where DLF has him at, right at the back end of that first round. There's a lot of good skill players to take before him, but once you get to about pick 8, you can kind of start, I think, picking through between your wide receivers 3, 4, and 5, your running backs 3, 4, and 5. You can kind of start, which however the draft goes, obviously, you can kind of start moving around there. And I would put Trevor Lawrence. I would also personally throw Justin Fields right there up there with him. So I like the quarterbacks who can consistently get you the points, obviously. And if you get somebody that can get you there for the next, at minimum, 3 to 4 seasons of Dynasty League, just a few seasons, I mean, that's huge to me.
Sigmund, how are you feeling about that? Because I mean, you could sit there and you could probably get Justin Fields
right
a whole round later, maybe.
Exactly. That's the thing, right? What makes Trevor Lawrence and I think if I do an honest ranking, I still have to put him somewhere on. Taylor was right there, like 14, 15, something like that, like an early second round pick, because you're exhausting. I think there's a clear top 7 or 8 wide receivers. Maybe another 1 or 2 land somewhere like Kansas City that we get excited about them. The running backs are really thin this year. I mean, there might be a Keyshawn Vaughn type that gets pushed up because of situation, but there's really two and a half worth drafting. So to some point, you're just looking at the quality of running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. There's Pitts, and I mean, Freiermuth could be okay. Like Heath Miller, okay, not really moving the needle. But there's Lance, there's Fields, there's Zach Wilson that will be available probably into the 3rd round. And the one point I do want to make here is that even in a 1 quarterback league, and I love the point like Taylor made, like, I have 1 left. I mean, that's just to make it more challenging, more engaging. Superflex is where it's at. But even in 1 quarterback leagues, when JJ Zacharyson was talking about late round quarterback and streaming, when the top quarterbacks were 25 points a game and you could stream 18, okay. But now the top quarterbacks are 30 plus, and you might be able to stream 20. You might. That's a bigger gap than you're giving up at any other position, really. Yeah. So it matters, right? Like taking Kyler Murray at his ADP, taking Lamar Jackson at his ADP. Mahomes was cheaper, obviously, but getting one of these quarterbacks, Josh Allen was crazy cheap. Josh Allen's like 3rd round. Everyone thought he was going to be an automatic bust. So, taking a chance on one of these guys with a 2nd round pick, I think is the prescription this year in rookie drafts.
Yeah, I love that take. I mean, with 2 quarterback leagues, we were talking about it yesterday with Shane. And Shane brought up how like Drew Lock is going in like the 3rd or 4th round. Yeah. And that's crazy because everybody's like overvaluing quarterbacks in 2 quarterback leagues. So Sigmund, like, where do you feel like that you draw the line, for these quarterbacks? Are you going off percentages and scores, or are you actually just, going with the feel and how the draft flows?
Well, if we're talking about a super flex draft, I think you always want to get that number 1, and then you can get cute at number 2. You could have a plan where you wait. And I mean, look, just in the last couple of months, guys like, all of a sudden Carson Wentz looks more interesting. Ryan Fitzpatrick looks more interesting. Cam Newton looks more interesting. Winston, we already mentioned, looks more interesting. So, you're getting deeper now into drafts, even sometimes down to or past 24, where you can get away with sluffing your quarterback too. So I think that's a little crazy. And maybe the thing you do to offset that is lower the quarterback scoring a little bit,
Yes.
Just
Scott Fishbowl style.
Yeah, well, you want to give people, the idea is to make setting lineup as hard as possible, or it's just as agonizing as possible. Where you're looking at different options across positions, and it makes it tougher on you. So, but absolutely, in a super flex startup, what I talk about is crazy. Like in a super flex startup dynasty right now, Trevor Lawrence in some of these, he's gonna be a top 5 pick in some of these drafts, like before any non-quarterback is taken. And that shows you the value of these quarterbacks in a universe where quarterback is a much more important position in fantasy leagues. And that's why getting them in the 2nd round in a 1 quarterback league is, that the good players are going to be doing that.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. I think that, having, I guess just this class as a whole and having the Russian upside from Justin Fields is crucial. But I'm going to stick with you on this next question because there's a lot of chatter about Derrick Henry. And how can he keep this pace up? And we had somebody in the Facebook group that we're actually live in right now. They were bringing up how he could run for another 6 years, putting up over 1,200 yards per season. So where do you stand with Derrick Henry? Are you somebody that wants to get rid of him ASAP, or are you somebody that wants to try and get the value while you can have him and just hold on and have the fun with the ride?
Well, because we're having this conversation, the fact that we're having this conversation indicates that whatever you think you're going to get, you're probably going to get a percentage of that, because everybody, and I get it, like you want to be a year early, not a year late and all that. One good thing here about Henry is he was used sparingly earlier in his career. Another good thing is he seems to be super durable. Another good thing is, I mean, you even saw kind of a doomsday scenario last year with the Titans line, and he was still Derrick Henry, So all in all, not a very good defensive division he's in. So I think that chances are, assuming that you're getting like 60 or 70 cents on the dollar of what he's actually worth because of this idea of wanting to get out too early, I think you probably hold him.
All right. So are you going to hold him, DJ and Taylor, or are you selling him right now? Let's just go with one-word answers because we're running out of time a little bit. So, DJ, you first.
I'm holding.
Okay. Holding and selling. Okay. Yeah, I'm personally somebody that wants to jump off him. But what about his doppelganger, AJ Dillon? Right, his doppelganger. That's what everybody's talking about. Like, isn't his doppelganger? That's what everybody says. That's what Twitter says.
I don't
Twitter
care.
says it's his doppelganger.
You can't be serious.
Nice
Plug.
Oh, shameless plug.
No. He's not his doppelganger. He is a running back who is big. I'm stopping there because I don't know where else to go where his similarities go. I mean, like that's not the same thing. Even like every step of the way from college into his rookie year, everything. It's not the same guy. Derrick Henry was a freaking monster in Alabama, not because he was on Alabama, because he is a monster. And then he comes in the NFL, and unfortunately, he doesn't really get utilized as much as Sigmund was just saying. But man, Derrick Henry is the reason I hold is because of this. He's kind of one of a kind. You don't find these kinds of guys just every 3 or 4 years or 6 or 7. AJ Dillon is not. I don't care how quadzilla he is. He is not a Derrick Henry doppelganger.
Oh, he's not. But I do like AJ Dillon. I like AJ Dillon. I can't help it.
Good.
Oh, Sigmund, do you hate me for hating?
No. The beautiful thing is it's blood is in the streets. It's time to buy AJ Dillon if you like AJ Dillon.
That's right.
His value's not going to get any lower, and
Mm-hmm.
he could be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Packers did the right thing. And I'm sorry, by the way, if I etiquette, I don't do a lot of quad panel shows. If I've been too long winded, I don't want to take up time.
No.
Especially on Taylor's birthday, we haven't even had a chance to sing to him yet.
I'm just going on mute so I can just listen to Sig talk to me on my birthday. That's all I want. That's all I want.
That's the gift that keeps on giving.
Taylor, you said something in the chat about him talking to somebody. What was that about?
Joe Goodberry, he always interacting.
Yeah.
So Goodberry's my Bengals. I know he's technically retired, but he's my Bengals source these days. So I always see you guys going back and forth and following those conversations because they're always good.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. All right, so let's go ahead. And I mean, we're literally maybe a quarter of the way through the show sheet, so we're gonna have to mess with some of the stuff. But no, dude. Seriously, like people came here for you. Okay, they didn't come here for me. They didn't come here for Taylor. Maybe Taylor to say happy birthday. DJ, they definitely didn't come here for DJ.
They came for the underscores, and we know that.
They came for the underscores. Oh man! All right, so I mean, sitting there and looking at it I do want to talk about this because we're seeing the Chargers completely revamp this offensive line, which they haven't had in like 10 years. They're signing all of the ex-Green Bay Packers offensive linemen, and they're also drafting players in the first or in the second, third rounds. So when it comes to Austin Eckler and him falling down draft boards because of the injuries from last year, is Austin Eckler actually a buy now? Like, is Austin Eckler somebody that you guys should value and you should be grabbing up as much as you can? Or is Austin Eckler just a flash in the pan from 2019?
Oh, go. I mean, let's hope. Joe Lombardi, the spotlight's on you. What are they going to do with this offense? But we saw it last year. This could be something really special. And you mentioned offensive line. Yeah, you get Corey Linsley, Matt Filer, decent. What the dream is if Rashawn Slater starts to fall, like the Chargers should pounce.
Oh, God.
If
Don't tease me like that.
So it's fun. Justin Herbert is fun. We have to put in proper perspective that he truly had like top 3 in any universe. You have to put his rookie season in the top 3 all time NFL rookie quarterback seasons, which is just like Haley's Comet,
But does he actually pass? I mean, he targeted the running back position over 100 times this past year. So, but he also ran 55 times. So obviously I feel like it could actually come up a little bit and it could increase. I'm actually really excited for Austin Eckler. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Good player and a good offense that's on the rise. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, and he hasn't gotten the workload. You brought up how they kind of sheltered Derrick Henry. Like they've also sheltered Austin Eckler to an extent. DJ, what you got?
Mm-hmm. I'm in agreement. I mean, it's kind of like in the same way we just talked about AJ Dillon with the lowest buy. It's not the lowest buy of Austin Eckler's career, but he is kind of being under talked about, under conversated. His name doesn't seem to appear as much. I wouldn't say that he's like insanely low on value. I wouldn't say that you're talking about a guy who is top 8, top 10 potential and is looking at like people are thinking he's a running back 25. I'm just saying that at this point, there's a lot of excitement about the rookies. There's a lot of excitement about the guys who just finished up their rookie season. And when you got a guy like Austin Eckler sitting there, look, there are some really great running backs, but you can't forget about him. If you can get him, especially as a piece to go along with another running back you already have on your team, you're going to really bolster up your roster. So I'm pretty hype on Austin Eckler. I just can't seem to get him in the leagues I'm in. The people that I try to trade with also know that he's good.
Taylor, what you got?
Well, it wouldn't be a T. Cornell appearance here without a very lukewarm take, which is I actually think he's like very appropriately valued. So it's very hard for me to because I went to go look at his ADP because that's, what I'm looking at to see. I haven't been in a ton of startups lately. So how are generally people valuing him? And he said RB17 in startups. And I'm like, that sounds about right. An RB17 that has, low end top 12 potential. Whether I'm going to go out and pay up for him in a league, I don't know. I think if someone's valuing him even closer to like the RB20 or a little bit lower range, certainly because he has that upside. He just, at the running back position, personally, I try to get the guys that have some strong insulated value, as I like to say. And with someone that's missed a lot of time last year with an injury, of course, you can't predict injuries, but if there's some sort of injury this year, for example, or anything that knocks him out or hurts his production, you're going to be looking at then a 26-year-old running back that has had, a tough go 2 years in a row, and the value just drops out. So he's one that I probably wouldn't specifically target in a trade. So, but I mean, his value is fine right now. I think is like RB17.
Taylor, I'm giving you a heads up because I was planning on doing this to you anyway since it's your birthday, and I had to. We're getting a hot take. I was like the last words of the podcast can be a hot take from you.
Hot take. All right.
So the ones that we sat on.
This show better go like 40 more minutes so I can think of one.
In the summertime, Sigmund, we had a show and we sat there for 15 minutes trying to get a hot take out of Taylor. Before we weren't live at this time, but we sat there for 15 minutes trying to get a hot take out of Taylor. Nothing.
Yeah, I'm just not amazing. I'm not bold. Very, very vanilla.
That's where it starts. That's like where the on the couch episode starts right there. Too. On your birthday too. Where did it all start?
Oh man, what constitutes a hot take? Sigmund, you want to take the surprise question?
Oh, I mean, I suppose at its essence, it's just something that is very far outside of the mainstream. Like if we were to have like a pie chart, like less than 1 or 2% of people would agree with you. I think in some circles it might mean a take that is crying for attention, clickbait or something like that. But really quick, I want to make a speech, like a public service announcement, because we talked about this Austin Eckler thing. I do think at this time of year, people overvalue rookie picks. Okay, and they will trade rookie picks. They will trade veterans for rookie picks to take players that they hope becomes the player they just traded. And it's a good time to trade for veterans. Austin Eckler, take your pick.
We actually just talked about that earlier on Taylor's podcast, how, I have very high hopes for Tooney. Or Tony, I'm sorry, Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
I keep on saying Tooney. It's a habit now. Kadarius Toney, I have very high hopes for, and he's like, would you trade Curtis Samuel for him? And I said, yes. And he's like, wouldn't that be the interchangeable piece, if for his high-end stuff? So I actually think that Kadarius Toney is a lot higher upside. However, that is almost like an interchangeable piece to an extent, which is what you were bringing up. I think he has a little bit higher upside, though. So real quick, we have the Jets, we have the Steelers, we have the Dolphins, we have Atlanta, we have Arizona. They all have glaring needs at running back. We still have free agency with Bell, with Gurley, but they're probably not going to be signed until somebody gets hurt, in training camp or hurt, in preseason if we have preseason this year. So it leaves the draft. So I think we might have to close out with this because we're, missing out on time. But which team will select running back first? Which running back goes first? And which team do you envision that running back landing with?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll jump in. I'm assuming you're all looking at me.
It's fun. We can go with Taylor first. Taylor,
please don't go with me first. I want Sig to go first.
Najee Harris to Miami at 18. It's there.
Ooh.
It's there, but it's really fascinating to find out that Miami had like a $2 or $3 million budget for free agency running backs, and that was it. And then you might say, well, that's because they knew they were going to take a running back. They have 4 top 50 picks. But also, we're singing praises of Chris Greer. Like, if there's a GM that I could see that has totally internalized the idea that you can spend like as much money you spend on your punter, on your backfield, because that's about how much they have tied up in their backfield right now. I could actually see him doing that.
Sigmund, to your point.
Yeah.
To your point, Greer came from the Bills, right? Who also went through a rebuild. Very similar, a little bit faster, but very similar. And we've seen what the Bills have done at running back. You know, they invest very low capital in running back when it comes to draft capital. They invest very little money into running back. And it's almost like the same, like he's coming up in the same exact, training course as where they don't need to invest money in the running back position. Because guess what? Over the past few years, high draft capital, I just did a study today about it. The past 3 years, it's all losing teams who have drafted highly on the running back situation, and they continue to lose. So,
and that's why I have to say it's my Pittsburgh Steelers taking Travis Etienne at 24. Right, that's my prediction for the first. They were all there at Clemson's pro day, and the Steelers really are behaving. Kalen Ballage, that's who they signed in free agency. I do want to say you brought up the 5 teams that need running backs, and there's not 5 starting quality running backs. I think there might only be 2. When the dust settles, we might only look back and see 1 even out of this class. And not all of those, whoever your top 5 is, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, Kenneth Gainwell, whoever, they're not all going to end up with those 5 teams. Carolina could draft a running back. They were in on Chris Carson. Denver could draft a running back. They're not, Melvin Gordon's like a stop. There are other teams, so it's not going to fall in line as neatly as folks might hope.
No, that will never happen. So you brought up, Steelers. You brought up, Dolphins. Like, is there any way the Jets go after a running back, especially with how they were brought up? Essentially, like
if they fall out of the first round, the Jets are just in the best player available. Why not? If you can get just like J.K. Dobbins was a good pick where the Ravens got him last year. He'll help you. Harris especially can help you win.
What about Chuba Hubbard? Are you big on him?
He's just another one of these players that always comes up with draft. Like, do you want to go back 2 years and hope that you get the player that you saw a couple of years ago, or this year? And I think because running back is just such a position that's disposable now, you're going to see him fall to the third day, and he's going to have to scratch and claw his way up a depth chart. And I think it's just going to depend on where he lands and whether he gets opportunity. So it's a total roll of the dice right now.
DJ, do you have a difference in opinion on that?
I'm in agreement that Steelers are our first pick. However, I was thinking it was Najee Harris. I just felt like there was a lot of talk about him being the number 1 guy. I personally like Travis Etienne. My pipe dream is that he falls all the way to the second round so Atlanta gets him. But I was thinking Pittsburgh is probably the first as well. It really just depends on what happens ahead of the draft when the Cardinals are the first to pick out of that group at that middle of the first round. Do they need a receiver? Kind of, not really. They could be fine this year. They could use some offensive line help. Originally I remember seeing a lot of mocks have Pitts go there, but maybe after his 4-4 pro day or whatever, maybe now all of a sudden he's the number 1 pick. Who knows? But anyway, I was always thinking that it felt like the Steelers' whole season last year and everything about them always hinged on not being able to run the ball. So I would have expected them to attack that problem. However, the Steelers have a great history of drafting really well in the first round, and that also led me to believe they wouldn't draft a running back in the first round. It seems like they have a really good history of taking guys who stick around on the team for a long time, are players who can spend their entire career and a long career in Pittsburgh, and that's generally not been the case for running backs, where they've been getting drafted a little later and been doing fine. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see but maybe 1 running back get drafted in the first, and then they all fall closer to the second. Kind of what happened. That's what happened last year, I believe, right? First running back was Clyde, and that was at the very end. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see, when Atlanta and the Jets and all these guys come back around again, Etienne or Harris, plus the rest is still available.
Yeah, I'm looking at the second round, picks 33 to 40. You've got those teams that we've talked about, even if you want to throw the Jags in there, if you think they don't believe in James Robinson, I don't know that they'll sink second round draft capital into a back, but the Jags, the Jets, the Falcons, the Dolphins again, the Panthers you mentioned before, and the Broncos, those are all teams between 33 and 40. What's that, 8 picks or something? I could see 2 or 3 backs going in that span really quick if none go in the first round.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's offensive line really concerns me. You know, it scares me like it does. Like you sit there and you look at the reason why they use the Juice Smith-Schuster and why they use the passing game and why the average depth of target was so terrible last year. And it's obvious they didn't have an offensive line, so they couldn't run the ball. So they used the passing game as their way of running the ball. Juice Smith-Schuster had 97 receptions for under 900 yards receiving. That's insane to me. Like it's crazy. So to throw a running back in there, even in Najee Harris, it makes me very, very nervous for the draft capital. Honestly, I think I'd fade those running backs, whoever lands there. But I do think there are certain running backs that actually have some upside depending on their landing spot. And like you said, I mean, we never know. Like we never saw Cam Akers ever landed with the Rams because they just spent draft capital on Darrell Henderson. So, speculating is just more fun than it is actually, I guess, informative knowledge. But it's still cool to sit there and think about things. Plus, you have to project. If you're going to make trades in fantasy this time of year, which Taylor and I talked about in his show earlier, you kind of have to speculate and assume certain players are going to land in certain places.
And I don't know. I mean, I've looked at some mock drafts, but I don't always go into beyond just the first 32 picks. I think this would probably go against what many people would assume the preferred kind of process that Shanahan runs. But like, would we be shocked if San Francisco took a back at 40, whatever they are, 43? I know, we typically think they just, Shanahan's scheme allows guys that are the Mosterts and the Jeff Wilsons of the world to excel. But
Tevin Coleman's.
But what if
Barry
they were able? What if they had the opportunity to get a Javonte Williams at 43? I don't think that's a spot that many people right now are assuming San Francisco's attacking that position. But if they did, that would be a huge value boost to whoever that running back is that gets drafted there.
And running backs typically hit right off the bat. You have to wait sometimes for cornerbacks to develop. You have to wait for multiple different positions to develop. Running backs is not one of them. So you'd be getting a Super Bowl run right off the bat, essentially. Like, if you were planning on doing that. So let's go ahead and get you guys out of here. We're going to do a little promotion to end the show, but let's finish off on this one. Where does Kyle Pitts belong in rookie drafts? You would take him before blank, but after blank. And let's say that your tight end is like Mark Andrews, so we can go middle of the road. Like, you don't need a tight end, but you also, you're not like set on tight end, essentially. We'll start out with Taylor.
So in a rookie draft, I would take him. Okay, I'm taking Najee Harris because I want a workhorse back potentially, and I'm probably taking Jamar and maybe Bateman or Devontae Smith, depending on theirs. I mean, I would say he would be the fifth non-quarterback that I would consider taking. So behind probably Harris, Chase, Bateman or Smith, and then maybe I'll throw ETN in there. So he would be the fourth or fifth non-pass catcher. That did not answer your question, but kind of did. Sorry,
TJ.
Non-quarterback is what I meant. Sorry.
I'm pretty much right there with him. Although
That's
for
right.
me, it does depend on landing spot wherever he goes. If he's going to be utilized the way he should be, if we're talking about earlier, like he was going to Miami, I honestly might consider him behind two guys, maybe like Jamar Chase and Etienne. That's just who I have as my top running back, and then grab him because pitch position scarcity. I would if you have Mark Andrews for one, you can wait for him. You can wait for Pitts to break out if he's the traditional tight end, needs a year or two. But if the guy is the guy who we all think he might be, I mean, the guy is not going to come around again. This is a once every few years, if that, to even get a guy like this. So if you're willing to take the risk, I would be happy grabbing him as the third or so player off the board, off non-quarterback, that is, like Taylor was saying.
I think Guam Don is saying that he should go there and be the next Calvin Johnson, essentially.
Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit.
I mean, if he gets that would be, if he goes to Detroit, it would have more of an impact on his draft capital in rookie drafts than Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to Kansas City. Just the pure jersey tag, like jersey swaps for Kyle Pitts, would be enough to make him almost the 101. Just
The
seeing that
measurables
picture.
next to Megatron.
You're like, oh, is that Megatron or Kyle Pitts? Who cares? It's the same person. It would be awesome. I would jump on that. I would happily be along the ride in that bandwagon if it works
Sigmund,
out here.
Yeah.
I know you're amped. I know you're amped on Kyle Pitts. Like, you might be the biggest super fan I've seen so far
Right.
that I've talked to. Like, where do you have him going for non-quarterbacks?
I mean,
Let's do quarterbacks because you were talking about it earlier.
if it's a super flex, he may fall as far as the 5th or 6th. Well, I mean, it depends. Actually, he could fall to the 8th or 9th or 10th pick in a super flex. In a one quarterback league, I think you are really liking sitting at, say, 3 or 4, going into your draft saying, I'm going to take Pitts. He's the 1-1. He's the 1-1. And it's basically like what DJ said. It's like what DJ said, okay? Guys like him just don't come along very often. And I know that there's a lot of great work being done to find stack up all those 55-45 bets. So stack them up, and profit, right? But outliers, fantasy football is about outliers. And you can't necessarily predict outliers, but you can certainly say if an outlier is coming, this is how the story would start. And that's Kyle Pitts.
Okay, guys, you've convinced me. All right, I will move them up. I will move them up my boards.
You've already missed
I've
out.
heard enough.
Too late.
No, you already drafted.
I'm not welcome on this bandwagon.
Taylor, I'm going to clip this out, and you're going to live through this for the rest of your life. When Najee Harris ends up on the Steelers. Sorry, Sigmund.
No. It's going to happen. They're in denial. The Steelers are a team in psychoanalyzing teams. The Steelers are just a team in denial.
They always draft so well. I was looking at it. Their first round picks through the past decade have they've been pretty.
No, like Artie Burns, Terrell Edmonds. Yeah. They took Terrell Edmonds over Lamar Jackson.
All right. Well, maybe I was comparing him too much to the Falcons' first round picks. So I will say the bar was low. I was seeing how my team was doing compared to that. But
dude, that's a very low bar.
It's awesome to live on, man. Being an Atlanta sports fan, Georgia fan, you are a hardened veteran in the sports world. You can't kill me. You can't take me down. Nothing hurts me anymore. I don't feel it.
Hey, I'm a Washington fan. I'm a Knicks fan. Like, I don't know how I ended up in both, but it's painful.
Knicks fan is kind of in the cool club. You know, you're still sticking around. I mean, they're on the rise. Something about
they are on the rise. Maybe.
Spoken like a Knicks fan.
Oh, God. Hey, you're a Syracuse fan. I don't want to hear it.
That was
insufferable. I understand.
That was a tough,
like Jim Boeheim.
Oh, man.
That was a tough game to watch right there.
A lot of ugly games in this tournament.
All right, so Sigmund, let's get you out of here. You're the first one. Tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, football guys at Sigmund Bloom, you know.
As if people don't know.
It's fun. And I'll end it on this because there's a lot of great talk. You can't be serious. A lot of great talk about podcasts. And before we were talking about music, DJ bringing up music. And there's this thing now, right? Like the guy from Maroon 5, I can't remember his name.
Adam.
Saying, Adam, there's no bands anymore, right? And it kind of is backed up in some ways. And it is because of what we were talking about in some ways that you can get together on a computer and be a whole band, you know, when you couldn't when we were kids, for instance. But podcasts are kind of new bands, you know.
You can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
I love that.
Or you'll need glasses. I'm sorry,
guys. Let's get this band back together.
Oh, God, I feel like I should put the Backstreet Boys on to close this out. But the last time I got copywritten by YouTube, the last time I put in sync up for Cooter Doodle. So I don't want to do that. Oh, man. DJ, what's going on, man? Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at the handle you see down below. For those of you in the audio world, it's at @A_R_R_D_J. I have considered changing that. I just haven't actually considered it enough to do it. But really, though, come find us at the You Can't Be Serious pod with Taylor. We are cracking the jokes, talking the NFL, shooting it straight. Whatever you want to know, we got it. We're ahead of the game, everybody. We're ahead of the game. We've known about the 17th game since they didn't even know about the 17th game. You come to our pod, you'll already be there.
That's right.
Yep. But yeah, no, for real. I come hang out on Twitter with me. I use it as my entertainment source too. So I like to just talk to people about random things. Come find me there.
He likes to talk to strangers.
I do. It's one of my favorites.
All right, Taylor, hit us.
All right, I'm hitting you with like a spicy, I'll say spicy take maybe, but not hot. No one's gonna say, "Oh, that's really hot." Okay,
Oh,
but
let's go.
I'm at _ Taylor Cornell, and where you visit me there, and you go to my page, you interact with me, you will hear takes such as, this time next year, Jamar Chase top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty.
Wow, bold.
All right.
I'm liking
I
it.
like
I mean, I won't get that's. I don't even have to back it up. It's just a hot take. You don't have to back it up. You just say it. You just say it and then delete the tweet later. Like, come on.
Never delete. Never delete.
You never delete, man. And you post everything, remember? You got to post everything. God, I had one tweet that was not posted out of all of my retweets. Out of all my tweets. That's crazy. All right, so yeah, go check us out on Join Our Circle. We have this show every single Wednesday. We have special guests on this show, of course. Next week, we have Rich Rebar, who's definitely one of my favorites in the industry, probably number 2 behind Sigmund Bloom. Ooh. Now, I love all you guys, man. Like, this is something where I grew up listening to you guys. Like, well, maybe not grew up, but I spent the past 5 or 6 years listening to you guys and aspiring to be this. So to have you guys on the show is like a dream come true. It's something that I didn't think was possible. So, Sigmund, I definitely appreciate you coming in. You know, thank you for doing so. And thank you for supporting our circle.
Oh, I'm happy to be in the circle. And again, happy birthday to...
Wait, let me close my eyes when you sing it.
I almost decided to end it on that, and I didn't have the screen up, so I didn't get it off in time. But oh my God, Taylor, you're getting flipped out again. This is your second clip of the show, bro. Listen, thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.
Oh.
Wait, where is it? No!
Smooth.
There it is. Yeah, this is a great exit.
Except I can't hear it.
Oh, I forgot to share it.